This is George, and I'm going to paint in the letter B that I drew out earlier, and apply some color. I'm going to spritz my watercolor palette. Is from Winsor Newton, and it comes with 24, but I added a couple of colors. First thing I'm going to do is use my old paint here as a background, kind of like I did here. And I'm going to ink in the lines. I'm going to use a ruler, but you can use any straight edge that you got handy. And I'm going to use my Staedtler pigment liner. You can also do it freehand. So let's try that now. I like the organic feel of the lines. Nothing has to be perfect. I'm going to spritz my palette down here because the old paint, you can still activate it, and I like to do that because paint is kind of a grayish tone. I'm going to go in with a technique called wet on dry. And I like doing this because it's a different feel for when it's wet on wet. But when you do the dry on, well, wet on dry, what you want to do is still have the paint kind of wet, so you don't have a lot of blooms. But if you want to have blooms, go for it. You do you. And remember, the color that you see when you first apply the watercolor is going to dry lighter. I'm using more of gray that is blue because I want the background to recede into the depths of the paper. Blue makes it go back into the background. And I'm charging a little bit of color with the background, still a little bit damp. To let the paint meld a bit more. So this part is pretty much dry, so I need to wet it again and apply some more color. So my idea is to paint the V using primarily yellow, and I'm going to use my palette over here so I can get the same consistency and apply a little bit more water, which means it's going to be really light. Okay, so wish me luck. And I previously drew out the letter B using my Staedtler pens, and as you can see, there is no bleed through when I apply the watercolor. And I want to also use the yellow for the flowers. Going to get more pigment or paint and a bit more water. And you can use whatever color scheme you want. You do you. But I like the yellow for the A, and I wanted to continue that. Now I'm not going into the stem right now because I'm going to treat it as a different element. So the paint on is more or less flat, meaning there are no shadows, but we'll do that in the next step. Using the same yellow that I used for the tulip, I'm going to mix in a bit of green. A little bit more yellow. There you go. Going in with the green here for the leaves. And a bit of blue to give a bit of a shadow. Make sure if you do this, it's pretty wet. And a little bit of clean water to spread out the darker green. Letting this part dry a bit more, and charging the green with blue to create a bit of a shadow, and clean water again to force it down this way, and a bit more blue. Again, the wetter the paint is, or section that you're doing, the easier it will be. And I want to add a bit more green. Good. You can change your colors as you go along. Watercolor, being what it is, will find a nice happy medium that it likes. One of the things I like about watercolor is the inability to know exactly what is going to go on. So I'm getting from more blue and more water. Let the paint dry a bit more and I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. It's pretty the places that I painted is pretty dry, and I'm going to use the same green for the stem, but I'm going to change it up a little bit and add a bit more, well, brown. Well, actually it's yellow ochre. And it's a little bit too light, and same there you go. And we'll change it again when I add some more defined shadows. But for now, we'll go with this. The reason why I'm going with the same colors is to have it more or less more cohesive and grounded. This area here above the B is part of the B because it's part of the tulip, but I want to differentiate between this part and this part. So what I'm going to do is still going with a yellow, but a darker or more warm yellow. There's a reason for my madness, and you'll see pretty soon. So this is the yellow. As you can see, it's different from this to this. Okay? And I'm going to add a bit of more of light orange, because the color that I first mixed was a bit more like that. So right now I'm laying in basic blocks of color. Later on, I'll show you another technique you can use with your watercolor. See the difference between this and this? Perfect. I'm going to add a bit more shadow here, and I'm going to use the same blue that I used before. just a little bit. You can use whatever color you want. And this is, again, wet on dry, or more or less, but the less water you have, the more control you have in applying the shadow. Another way of doing it is to pre-wet the area, like I'm doing now. But make sure the surrounding areas are pretty dry. In the case of this, the tulip. Normally, I don't like to use the hair dryer with watercolor until the watercolor has stopped interacting with the various colors. But since this is more or less dry, I can go in with the hair dryer. Using the yellow that I had here and applying a little bit of orange, to it, I'm going to, and water, the more water you have in your watercolors, the lighter it will become. So, and I don't know exactly what I'm going to do until I do it, and I'm as surprised with the end result as you are. I mean, I have an idea about maybe what I'm going to do, but until I actually do it, I'm not sure. Okay, I need to change a little bit. So, yeah, okay. I'm going to use the orange that I just mixed and apply it a little bit to here, but only as an accent. little bit of water to wet it. Kind of mixing my styles here. Which is okay. Kind of a cross between more organic and more or less graphic. Apply a little bit of water, then I'm going in with the orange, light orange, to diffuse it. And I'm going to go with, I forgot to do yellow over here, but because it's pretty much the same color, it's okay. And besides, this is going to be changed in any way. A little bit of water going in and forcing the color to back off a little bit. Since this is pretty much dry, I'm going to go in and add some orange. Yeah, a little bit of red to give it a more of a pop. So you can see, you can change your colors as you go along without fear of making a mistake. So for this one, we're going to do some shadow again. But not as stark. Because you still want the yellow to come through. Good. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit of shadow on the stems by mixing in a bit of brown to my already established green. Again, you want to keep it more harmonious as you can by using as little color or pigment as you can do it. Okay, and again with the blue here, okay, and you can add some dots like I did here to add texture. I think what I'm going to do is add some shadow here. Well, I'll show you. Mixing up some more yellow, bright yellow. And the warmer I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll see. Wet on dry, and a little bit of water to soften the edges. And a little bit of green. I know, green. Why? Because yeah, okay. I added the green to make a cell shading. To tie in the leaves with the bee. And of course, if this doesn't work for you, don't do it. A little bit more water. Kind of like that. Watercolor is basically just fun time. clean my brush off a little bit, going back into the orange, going to, because the veins here are fine, but I want to include some veining here. Dry stroke. And a bit more up here. And since I want to start using or playing around with my Iuile, I'm going to do that now. I'm using salmon. Inside here. I'm not worried about going over the lines because that will be taken care of with going over the ink again. So I'm using, like I said, salmon. Okay, but if you don't have these and you have some other metallics, you can use those. So, example, I have the Caracal, and I'm going to use the gold, and I have the base painting of yellow for the rings, like I said, because the metallics will be more true to the actual color. Sorry if the camera is blurring out a bit, but I haven't figured out how to stop it from doing that. And if you want to add some more, because I like my metallic watercolors. So, what do you think? Although you can't really see the metallic sheen, it's there. So, hold on 1 second. Going over the ink. Using the ink to go over the watercolors, I mean to say. And I use the 1.0, but I think I'm going to use the 0.5 for going over these. And the 0.3 to go over the gold I added last minute. And don't forget to sign your work. And remember to check your registration if you're in the US so you can vote. So how do you like it? You can see a bit of the gold coming through on the camera, but definitely in person. So I hope you enjoyed today's video and got inspired, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.